see, what happened is that these men children, now calling themselves MRAs, voted in the deregulation of pussy. They freed the markets. The regulation of pussy was traditionalism. Of course, we're using a simile here to make a point. These men children still support the deregulation because they are infected with this egalitarian liberalism, this utopian nihilism, which they call progressive. They are free marketeers, these MRAs. Well, most of them anyways. Then they realized that they had priced themselves, and most other males, out of the market. As they defend this deregulation as a right, perhaps not a God-given right, but a state-given right. By pricing themselves out of the market, they shot themselves in the foot, and now they're trying to make amends. Pussy goes up in price because along with this deregulation, there are prohibitions upon masculine options, natural male sexual options, such as taking, which could be called thieving or raping, taking by force, such as exploiting, such as manipulating somebody with your higher intelligence, with your deeper understanding of human nature. These are forbidden. See, the market has to work within the rules of property ownership, and pussy is owned by the female. And these MRAs support this. Because you see, in the Judeo-Christian world, thieving, taking, being violent, force, exploitation, these are sins. These are wrong. The MRAs would rather masturbate the rest of their lives away rather than open that Pandora's box, because there they feel more vulnerable than the females they despise. So by giving females rights over their own pussies, deregulating the price, allowing them to set the price for access to their pussy, and by taking away all options that pre-existed in nature and then in traditionalism, they in fact castrate themselves, force themselves deeper into the beta male position. But worse, they force them to become asexual. So they still support deregulation, deregulating pussy, and are against anything sinful, anything uncivilized. And what is their solution for being left out of the market? Turn away from it. Pretend you don't want to be in the market. Not only those priced out of it, but even those who can afford the price or may find ways of not paying much should be convinced to not invest. This is classic passive aggressive behavior and sour graping. To use the Pandora's box metaphor, they wanted the box opened. They cheered as the padlocks were broken. But they did not expect that along with the good stuff, bad stuff would come along. This is naivete. The idiot, you see, whenever he is given a gift, he only thinks about the benefits. He does not consider the costs. And when he considers the costs, he cannot envision the benefits. For him, it's everything is black and white. It's either a win-win situation, such as liberty will lead to this wonderful world, or it's a lose-lose situation. That is, traditionalism is bad, bad. Solution? No, do not close the box, because this is impossible presently. Do not even take responsibility for your own naivete, your failed expectations, your childishness, your idealistic stupidity. But pretend that it wasn't you, just like a boy pretends that he didn't break the vase. Cast aspersions against somebody else. Find an easy target to unburden yourself from the responsibility. Isn't that what women are, and effete boys? Irresponsible. Don't they lack integrity? You see, a man, even when he is fooled, even when he's lied to, he takes responsibility for his own actions, for his own judgments. He accepts the consequences as being, firstly, something he should account for. This is what a man does. Now, but these MRAs, what they do is blame it all on others. Blame it on the things that came about. Blame it on them for daring to come out once the locks were broken. Blame it on them for being what they are. Don't blame yourself for failing to see what women are, but blame women for being how they are. You see, the ancients already knew this stuff that these boys now present as these new information. You know, hypergamy and how men are expendable. All this was known, and this is why they invented these rules: monogamy, marriage, these controls not only over female sexual practices, but over male sexual practices. This is the reason. This information is ancient, that these men children are just discovering it, selectively so, because they don't dare to go further with the insights. They just want to stay with the male-female dichotomy. These insights are ancient. They are the very reason why traditionalism came about. It was a way of controlling the male and more so the female sexual instincts, sexual behaviors, so as to enable civilization to come about. The underlying benefit for them now with their actions, their organizing, is to make the best of it. The deregulation of pussy offers them the opportunity to never grow up, to remain children, to never try to purchase pussy, to remain boyish, stunted. That's what retardation means. It comes from the French en retard, to be late. And they are late in entering this game. If they're just coming to terms with how nature is, and they're discovering what a woman is and what a man is, then they are truly late. And this is a result of stunting, like I said. The Western modern system shelters minds. It prevents them from growing up. It protects them from the big bad world, keeps them boyish. We see this in the worship of youth, of adolescence. We see this in how everybody wants to play at being a man or a woman, but never actually wants to be one. By the way, education is not intelligence. A computer can be programmed with data to carry out a function. It does so by not understanding the data, but just repeating it, following the data and how it leads it to certain activities. But I digress. Back to the MRA and the men children. To sour grape pussy, they must cast aspersions about the men who have invested already, the men who have taken the risk despite the costs. the men who chose lucidly to enter the fray, to adapt to the circumstances and play the game, not knowing what the outcome would be, but willing to take responsibility for whatever happened. This is what men have always done. But when you're a man-child, you do not want to grow up and take those risks. You don't want to be burdened with these potential costs. All you want to think about is for the easy gain. And turning away is easy. These men children must make it seem that all investments are a lose-lose situation. That is, even if you manage to have a child, then, well, your wife must be a whore. And your child will grow up to be degenerate because they take themselves as an example of what happens when you grow up in this world. You become like them, stunted, degenerate. The loss they speak of is always immediate because they have no capacity to think beyond their noses. Their perceptual event horizon is contained within the years between their birth and their death. Beyond that, they have no interest in anything. In fact, even when discussing reality, they don't want to go beyond the scope of male and female. They just want to remain there on that level. They don't want to see how this translates into other aspects of human nature, into racial aspects, let's say. How genes produce memes, how not all memes are the same. They have different qualities, being birthed in different areas within different peoples. They want to ignore all that because for them it's about unifying the victims in this case. They want to create a new label for being a victim. And this they're trying to adapt to the cult of victimhood which we are living in. It's called modern life. So they want to create a new group, the male group, the new victims. So for them, all females are whores. And everyone uses one another. This is a great revelation to them. It's very hurtful for them. The fact that everybody is using everybody, that men use women and women use men. They want the romantic soap opera ideal, where they are loved for who they are, whatever that means. The solution for them is remain indoors, wear nice slippers, and play video games. Never admit that you care about the outcome of a dice roll, because you're never willing to throw the dice. Therefore, essentially what they've done is they fucked themselves up the arse, and I think they're beginning to like it, or they're trying to make do with the pleasure of not having to fuck somebody else up the arse. Instead of accepting the responsibility of it, they denounce the outcome as failing to meet their expectations. This is how deluded and naive and stupid they are. This is what romantic, imbecile idealists do, particularly the nihilistic kind. They overestimate and underestimate because they are infantile, and they choose to blame the world for not meeting up with their expectations, with their idealism, instead of saying that their expectations were wrong. They blame the outcome for failing to meet their expectations. This is the reversal of nihilism. See, the world should be changed to meet with human fantasy, rather than man should adapt to the world. This is the reversal that nihilism provides, a change of perspective, if you will, which is very easy. So it's not their childish judgment that was an error, was stunted, but it was the world which is bad. And females, being agencies of nature, blind, instinctive, intuitive agencies of nature, are the perfect target. They are the personification of nature. By hating women, by denouncing them, what they are denouncing is their own sex, their own reality, their own existence. This is quintessentially nihilistic. And this is what feminism did as well. By denouncing men, they denounced order. They denounced the cap over their sexual promise. They denounced anything that judged them naturally, that is, by their appearance, by how fit they are, because beauty, after all, is a symptom of order, of symmetry. It indicates fitness. And who denounced these but the most ugly, the most degenerate amongst them? This is what decades of uncontrolled reproduction resulted in. Retarded, degraded minds, regurgitating computer minds, autistic in every sense of the word, socially inept idiots who think they deserve a second chance, as if the world is something you can just reboot and start over and replay the level. Synopsis: traditionalism was a regulation on the price, the costs of pussy, of reproduction. This to make most men investors, because at the time men were required for this by the system. No longer so. And also to prevent men from being free radicals, because when men were not investors in the social system, they became destructive to it. They became disruptive. So in order to integrate them in, you had to control females. And feminists are right about that. Paternalism is a control over females, but also over males. I continue. Pussy is now deregulated, supported by the very men children now excluded from the markets. This because other methods of male control have been discovered. Sophistications in human husbandry. No longer do we need force or violence. You can manipulate the mind now with newer insights into the human condition, into human nature. I mean, this MRA obsession with computer games is part of it. You numb the brain. You offer it an artificial reality to escape in, and you essentially make it harmless to the system. As long as these men pay their taxes, they go to work, what the fuck does the system care if they get their rocks off, if they have kids? One man can fertilize hundreds of women. So just as in nature, most males will not reproduce. It was only under paternalism, traditionalism, that most men got to reproduce. And I think this is what miffed women, that they had to reproduce because of social constraints with males that were subpar, that were not males that they would have naturally chosen. Now the markets, by deregulating pussy, return to primitive free marketeering, but this time with the addition of protections over property, preventing thievery, and the taking advantage of idiots. Poaching, in other words. Male expendability, prevalent in nature because most males do not reproduce there, is now blamed on females who have been freed from regulation and are now protected by other males from poaching. The males now excluded, as they would have been anyways, try to find a passive-aggressive, pressuring solution to a predicament they supported and still help maintain with their idealistic naivete. To comfort themselves, they project negative outcomes to all reproductive success, because misery loves company. But who provided such guarantees, such protection over females? Who denied male their natural advantages, their higher musculature, their higher brain capacity. Who provided such guarantees and such protections? When in nature males could use force if they chose to, their natural advantage, and they can use intelligence to exploit female stupidity. Who put a cap on male sexuality? Why, other males, of course, the nihilistic kind, males that could not compete in nature, who despise nature and natural selection, males carrying a nihilistic meme, hating life, hating the world, idealists, males who could not compete in nature, like I said, and so wanted to overturn natural hierarchies and denounce natural selection. This is who. How did females, wronged supposedly by natural selection, yet allowed to be born and to persist due to the sheltering, deal with the sheltering of modernity, deal with nihilism? They found men, the natural agencies of order and strength and control, and cast them as devil incarnate. Now, how do the MRAs, equivalent to feminism, deal with the same problem? They found females, an agency of selectivity, of instinct, of genetic promise, and cast her as the devil incarnate. You see, females are natural filtering agencies, and it is this filtering that keeps these MRAs outside the genetic pool. With feminists, the sexual role transferred into social and cultural roles called gender roles was blamed on males, as if men invented sex and sexual types, instead of taking advantage of these natural roles. With the MRA, male, let's call them male, expendability and hypergamy are blamed on females, as if females invented them rather than merely using them and taking advantage of them. In feminism, who were the most emboldened, the most passionate, the most aggressive, the first to be attracted to the idea of female emancipation? Yes, the lesbian bulldyke, the fat chick, the ugly one, all the females that despised masculine judgments and natural sexual proclivities. They despised that men liked a certain shape, that they liked females based on how they looked, because they could not meet up with this ideal, this natural ideal. So they wanted to reinvent what beauty was, or to denounce beauty as not even being real, as being superficial, as they called it. So now seek in the MRAs the same elements. Seek amongst them, amongst the most passionate and angry ones. Seek there the effete boy, the homosexual, the nerd, the socially inept, the one who is unattractive on a natural scale, the insecure, the sexually inexperienced, the one fearing sexual inadequacy. Their numbers swell with these types. You see, by turning away from women, you don't have to test yourself sexually. Every time you have sex with a woman, you take a risk. This is true. Men don't want to put themselves in a situation where they feel that they might be laughed at, that they will not perform, so to speak. So these MRAs, these MRA gurus, give them an excuse to make their fear into something noble, something grand. Now, for some of the differences between the feminist movement and MRA movement, feminism was preferable to the system. It promoted a female type, which was by nature more docile, less challenging to authority, easily integrated within social frameworks, impressionable, simple, instinctive, unable to think abstractly. It also resulted in the decline of the reproductive family unit, a must in order to integrate heterogeneous populations into a uniform whole. It produced single mothers and children with no connection to the past, to a heritage, to a tradition. It created young minds desperate for an identity, and the system provided an identity, provided materialism, hedonism, which is now prevalent in what we call modern worldviews. Feminism was ideal for the system, just as this movement towards emancipating homosexuality and making it normal is ideal for the system. What of the MRA? Turning away, quote unquote, by whom? The very ones who are already excluded. Will they pay their taxes, like I said before? Will they perform their duties? Will they adhere to the rule of law? In other words, the alpha male's rule. If yes, then what does it matter if they turn their backs and turn up their asses? One male can fertilize hundreds of females, as a male does in nature. All these catchphrases, hypergamy, the peacock's tail, and all that shit, that's old news. That was part of evolution theory for decades. It's nothing new.